you need to make this desert blossom cake. Welcome back to Paul and Benny. I'm making this beautiful desert blossom cake today. It has some familiar flavors and some that you may have never had before, but this is beautifully perfumed, perfectly delicate, and it's super easy to put together. I'm so excited to show you this cake. I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm just buttering and flouring a pan. I'm putting some parchment in the bottom just to add a little extra security. And I'm going to start off with my flour here. All my dry ingredients are going into one bowl. My flour, my baking powder, some salt, and some cornstarch are all going into the dry ingredients. Yes, that's cornstarch in a cake. And you want to be sure you whisk or stir somehow, get them all very well combined. And then get a separate bowl for your wet ingredients. I'm adding some butter. People like to ask, is it salted or is it unsalted? You can use whatever kind of butter you like, but it'll taste better if you use salted. I've added my sugar here, and we're going to give it a good mix here. We want to blend it until the sugar and butter mixture gets fairly smooth and fluffy and starts to turn a lighter color yellow. Just means you're beating some air into it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to get it really well combined before we add our eggs. Oh, and I almost forgot. I want to add some oil. I know we already have a lot of butter in here, but at room temperature, butter solidifies and oil remains liquid, so it feels more moist. But we want the butter flavor, so we're going to add, a little extra, a little give and take here. And then we're going to add our eggs. And I usually don't go through all this, but for a special cake that I don't want to mess up, I do. I'm breaking each egg into a separate bowl. And from here on out, I'm breaking the egg first because I had one recently where I put the egg into a bowl. Not so recently, but I put the egg into a bowl and I didn't realize till I broke the egg open that it was full of blood in the middle. So now I'm breaking the egg in a separate bowl, one at a time, before I add it. And we want to make sure that we scrape the bottom of the bowl on the sides really well periodically. Make sure there's no dry ingredients stuck there in the bottom. We want to make sure everything's really well combined. Next, we want to add some vanilla extract, a little bit of almond extract, and the star of our show, you probably don't use this too often in your baking, but it's orange blossom water. You can get it at your Middle Eastern or Mediterranean grocer near you, and it is super potent. You want to carefully measure it. 1/2 teaspoon too much and you can totally overpower your dessert, but just the right amount perfumes anything you're making beautifully. If you don't have orange blossoms where you live, it's a very unique, beautiful, fragrant, sweet smell. It does not smell like oranges or orange juice. It smells like orange blossoms, and that's going to take this cake over the top. Also, the orange blossom water is relatively inexpensive, probably like under $4 or $5 for a bottle. And the one I get, it's only 2 ingredients. It's orange blossoms and water. We also use it to make this fantastic lemonade recipe. I'll try to link it below, but you can find it here on our channel. This is where we want to start being more careful with our mixture. We don't want to overmix it. So I'm going to turn the beaters on here, and I'm just going to mix until it's combined. Matter of fact, I'm going to leave a little bit of dry ingredients hanging out there, and I'm going to grab my spatula. Overworking flour, especially if it's wet, can develop gluten and make it tough. We want a really tender crumb. We're adding the butter mixture before we add any liquid. We're going to coat that flour with plenty of oil, plenty of fat first before we introduce our milk, and then that way it won't absorb too much moisture. So we add in our milk. Again, we're going to mix it, I think only 15 seconds, and I turned the beaters off and just went back to hand mixing because I don't want to go too far. When mixing by hand, you want to be sure that you scrape the bottom and sides really well. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there are some streaks in there where there's like milk that wasn't stirred in and butter that wasn't mixed in completely. So you want to do a really good job there. And I said earlier I was buttering and flouring a pan, and apparently I only buttered it. So there's a little bit of flour, just so it doesn't stick. Finally, we're getting somewhere. We're going to add our batter into our buttered flour parchment lined cake pan. And we want to smooth it out as best we can. I'm not tapping it down like you do some cake batters. I'm being delicate with it. And I'm putting about 95% of the batter into the cake pan and leaving the rest in the bowl. So scrape off my mixing spatula there really well and just spread out that batter. It's thick and airy and light. I'm going to take it all the way to the edges and try and get it as smooth as possible. You're probably wondering why I only put 95% in the pan, because the other 5% is what I'm going to enjoy while the cake's baking in the oven. You'll want to let it bake 28 to 30 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. If you're using a dark pan, I would lower the temperature by about 20 degrees. Now I'm adding a couple tablespoons of honey to a tablespoon of really hot water, almost boiling. I got it out of the tea kettle. And we're just going to mix this really, really well until it's a thin syrup, just a little thicker than water. The flavors of honey with orange blossom water, almond extract, all these flavors together create such a beautiful, just really, really pretty aroma. When your cake is baking, when you taste it, it is so delicate and it's hard to explain, but it's everything Mediterranean, Middle Eastern. It's so good all together in one. Yet it's super mild. It's the opposite of overpowering. And right here is where I wish I had my pastry brush. I always know where it is, except for when I need it, of course. And so it works just fine. If you don't have one, just get out a spoon and try to coat the top of your cake the best you can. It's going to look really wet, and then after like 20 seconds, it's going to soak in. And you're just going to try to get it all the way to the edges. It's okay if it drips down the edge some, but you really want the top crust really good and sealed. It's the best way I can explain it. The honey and the water is going to add a little bit of moisture to your cake, but it's also going to create a little bit of a barrier there so it doesn't dry out, because it's not going to be iced. It's also going to make the top a little bit tacky, so it's going to be easier to attach your toppings. Speaking of toppings, here goes our first one, and that is our finely chopped pistachios. And then once our pistachios are on, we're taking a little bit of our leftover honey syrup and dipping the backs of our edible flowers in the syrup. I got mine at a local grocery store, like a fine food store as they call it, and you might think they'd be super expensive. It was like $2.79. But really, any marigolds or carnations that are grown without pesticides, so your local florist might have some, you might have some in your garden, or a neighbor if they're willing to share. But if you don't have any in your produce section at the grocery store, ask the produce guy. Ask the produce guy, they can probably get you some. Tiny rose petals would also be really great on here. I don't know what the little pink and yellow flowers are. They almost remind me of snapdragons, but it didn't say on the package. Look how beautiful it starts turning out. You don't need any artistic talent or skill. You just want to stick them on there, no rhyme or reason, and just do what looks nice to you. If I didn't say it earlier, you want to be sure to let your cake cool about 10 minutes before you add the syrup, and then completely all the way cold before you add any flower petals. Don't know where a cake plate is, but I had an upside down pie pan, and it worked out just fine for what I needed. I wish you were here so you could smell this. Not the flowers. Oh, the cake. The flowers, they don't have much smell, a little bit like flowers, but the cake is so beautifully perfumed. It's sweet on top with that honey. Flour tastes like just a little hint of something pretty, almost nothing, but I don't need a fork. This is so good. The inside crumb is super delicate, but that outer edge is just a little bit crusty, just enough to keep it interesting. The pistachios provide no crunch at all to the cake. They're chopped so finely. The edge almost has a pound cake cookie crumb feel, but the inside is just heaven. You need to make this. I don't care if you don't put the flowers on it. Sprinkle some pistachios on it. If you don't have pistachios, sprinkle some almonds on it. If you don't have some almonds, you don't need anything. A little powdered sugar. What matters is the flavor. The orange blossom water, fragrantly. It just gives it something. And the honey, so pleasant. You need to make this desert blossom cake. If you're still watching at this point, would you kindly hit the like button? And if you love easy, delicious recipes, why not subscribe? As always, I'm Paul. We're grateful for festive, delicious, beautiful desserts that are sure to please a crowd, and they're super easy to make. And if you've been here before, you know that we're grateful for you, but it's almost Easter. We're grateful for Jesus, and we're grateful for you watching.